Number 14. Currently, our sun is neither getting bigger nor smaller. What within is always trying to make it become compressed and smaller? That would be gravity. What force stops gravity from making the sun smaller? That would be fusion explosions. What would happen to the sun if the nuclear explosions, the fusion explosions, started to die down and become less frequent? Well, at that point, the outward push would be lessened, and gravity never gives up, so the gravity would make it smaller. Get smaller, more crushed, that kind of thing. What would happen if the explosions were larger than the force of gravity? So if the fusion explosions outdo gravity, it will become bigger. And we'll see both of these things happening at some point. These two forces keep the sun stable, like it is right now, for most of its life. Any star still using its original hydrogen supply for fusion, as in it hasn't run out of its first fuel, is known as a main sequence star. Alright, now this little segment is very small, and yet it represents the vast majority of a star's life. Now that small end we're getting to now, the beginning of the end. What will happen to trigger and cause the sun and other stars to stop being stable? Well, that fuel in the middle starts to run out. Hydrogen starts to run out. Logically, the star's core would be primarily what element? Well, the hydrogen has been fused to make helium the whole time, so the hydrogen is gone, but there's plenty of helium now in the core. According to number 16, what will the result of the loss of fusion be in the core? So we have less fusion going on. It's going to let gravity kind of dominate. It'll get smaller. As the sun becomes smaller, what will happen to the temperature at the core? Now, if you were inside that core, you'd feel it crushing you, so you'd get very hot and sweaty. What happens to the temperature? It's going to get a lot hotter. Or the temperature goes up. This change in temperature will allow the blank and the core to fuse into blank. So remember, what's in the core now is helium. And so for the first time, now this is very different, the helium is going to be the fuel, because it's crushed enough and it gets hot enough to actually let helium start to be fuel. And the helium is going to become carbon as it fuses. Carbon's bigger than helium. 25. The fusing of helium into carbon produces larger amounts of energy than ever before. It will even be greater than gravity, according to number 23. What will happen to the size of the sun now? So we're outdoing gravity with these explosions, so it'll get bigger. Gets bigger. This change in size will make the star become cooler. So as it gets bigger, as a gas expands, think about a spray paint can, and when you spray it, you feel it get colder. The natural consequence of an expansion of a gas is things get cooler. So it's going to get cooler. And what color do we associate with cool stars? Red. So it's going to become red in color. In average-sized stars like the sun, we will call this phase a red giant. In large and extra-large stars, this phase will be called a red supergiant. One word there for supergiant. Alright, now we're going to talk about the ways a star can end, like the ultimate end for stars. What happens after the red supergiant phase depends on how massive the star is. So everything about how quickly and how a star lives and dies is based on how massive it was when it was first born. Let's start with stars about the mass of our sun. The death of stars about 1 after the red giant phase, which we've already covered now. Soon, the helium remember it's becoming the carbon, the helium starts to run out at the core. Once again, the blank reactions in the core, those fusion reactions are going to slow down, which means the star is going to start to collapse and get hotter again. And the core will become blank. Remember, gravity's crushing it, so as gravity dominates over the fusion explosions that have died down, it gets smaller. Now the star core will be made mostly of blank. Now remember, helium has become carbon as it's fused, so that core is made of carbon. However, the sun will never be able to fuse this carbon. Eventually gravity will crush it to about the size of the Earth. We'll continue on the next video.